Hello and welcome to panel number 5 on day 1 of Streaming Media East Connect. I'm Eric Schumacher Rasmussen. I'm the editor and VP of Streaming Media, and we are launching on the first day of our biggest Streaming Media Connect ever. We've got 33 panels and presentations total for the rest of the week and through Monday of next week, followed by the Content Delivery Summit next Tuesday, May 25th. And we're already looking forward to our first in-person event in what'll then be a year and a half, Streaming Media West. We're scheduling it for Huntington Beach, the first week of November. And we hope to see as many of you there as possible. And in those 33 panels and presentation, we're covering the entire gamut of streaming media and online video related topics, from production and encoding to advertising technology, 5G, and all manner of OTT related topics, including the one we're going to talk about today. As always, all of these presentations and panels will be available on the Streaming Media YouTube channel within a day or two of the time they run. You can also find them by going to streamingmedia.com and clicking on the videos tab at the top of the page. Before we jump into the discussion, I'd like to thank our diamond sponsor for Streaming Media East Connect, Signient, and we have a short video to play from Signient right now.
When the director calls action.
And action.
When the game is on.
Pick it up, it's good.
Or it's time to save the universe again. Media Shuttle is there. Trusted by more than 25,000 media companies, Media Shuttle delivers, making it easy and secure to send any size file anywhere fast. The journey begins with Media Shuttle portals, customized and branded for any project and designed to be so easy, your end users will love it. All while giving operations teams complete control through a simple yet powerful admin interface. Add users, set permissions, customize file delivery specs, and report on all activity. Blast off with proprietary acceleration technology. Media Shuttle moves your content anywhere in the internet-connected world at hyper speeds. Along the way, your files are protected. Our commitment to enterprise-grade security has made Media Shuttle a preferred tool with Hollywood studios, major sports leagues, broadcasters, and more. With Media Shuttle, your files are never handed over to Signient. File movement is orchestrated between the end user's workstation and your storage, whether on-prem or in the cloud. Your IT team simply provisions your storage, connecting it to the Media Shuttle cloud service, and Signient handles the rest. Get started on your Media Shuttle journey today, a journey without limits.
Thanks again to Signient, and I would also like to thank ATEME, the sponsor of this panel. And Ben Schwarz, our moderator, has been organizing these panelists from several different countries. Ben, welcome. Ben is with Innovation Consulting, and he will be guiding us on our conversation about meeting the multi-platform, multi-device challenge. And so with that, I'll hand it over to you, Ben.
Thank you very much, Eric. I think I've unmuted and everything. So just a minute's introduction to our panel. I hope we'll give you an informative and hopefully entertaining short hour. We're going to be talking about the promise that OTT started delivering 10 years ago. That was a long time ago, or it was really not that long for OTT, but it was all about anytime, anywhere, any device. And I used to say 10 years ago, anything, because we were also thinking about services, not just content. And so it's about the challenge of that multi-device support, how we're going to get there. My name is Benjamin Schwartz, and I run a small consulting firm called CTO Innovation Consulting out of Paris. I also do some communication work with people like the 8K Association or the Ultra HD Forum. And in our panel, we have 4 distinguished panelists who are going to give you presentations. Jeff Allen is the president of ShortsTV. He's going to basically be our marketing guy today and give us that vision of this issue. Ian Nock is a principal consultant from Fairmile West, and he's got the nice task of talking about all the shiny new stuff that's coming in our direction in this multi-device area. Then Remi Beaudouin from ATEME, our sponsor, he's got a presentation about the whole subject, and he's got a really interesting angle that his company is quite unique in on sustainability. And we'll finish off with a discussion with Tom Schultz, who's the engineering director of PlutoTV, who, among other things, is going to give us a drop down on analytics. So how they talk to this area of multi-platform, multi-device. So with that, if you want to put your camera on, I gave you the order. We'll start with Jeff, our marketing guy, and over to you, Jeff.
Hi, everybody. So happy to be here with you today. I'm Jeff Allen. I'm the president of ShortsTV North America and Latin America. For those of you that aren't familiar with ShortsTV, we are the first and only 24/7 linear and OTT channel that is dedicated to short films. We exist to support the foundations of the entertainment industry with really strong affiliations with film distributors, film schools, film festivals, independent producers that cobble together the cast and the crew and get that passion project made. We believe all roads to primetime entertainment lead through short film, and we are here to give voices to those people that are passionate about filmmaking and on their journey to becoming part of this whole entertainment ecosystem. And we are available in 100 million households worldwide, meeting audiences where they are. We are in North America, Latin America, EMEA, Europe, and in the Middle East, and also in South Asia and India. Some of our fastest growing markets are in India and led by their mobile consumption patterns. So I prepared a little deck for us to go through. I'm going to talk a little bit about meeting consumers where they are and the challenges associated with that and the decisions that we have to make when we're on that journey. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully this all goes off without a hitch. Okay, so you've got some content. You're a content provider officially. Now what? You've got a lot of options, and as we start this thing, I'm going to just give us some categories, and let's all agree on some definitions of these things as we talk about them today, because there's a lot of acronyms, there's a lot of different options and terms thrown around, so it's important that we all agree what we're talking about when we're talking about it. I threw linear up here because we're ShortsTV, and we are first and foremost a linear channel and distributing through what we call traditional television, where there's a schedule that is programmed and delivered to an audience at a certain time via radio waves, cable, or satellite. The example I put here is DirecTV, where you can find ShortsTV delivered via satellite. And we talk about OTT also, OTT meaning over the top. We can use this term in a lot of ways, but usually it's used to talk about SVOD or AVOD, that is subscription video on demand or advertising-based video on demand. And this is when a channel is offered directly to viewers via an application. This can be a web application, mobile application, digital media players like your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, or a gaming console, or any sort of a new smart TV that's plugged in like a Samsung or your Vizio TV. Then there's what is also SVOD or linear, but we're going to call a branded area. And if anybody has a better term for this, I'm happy to put it up for debate. But these are the offering that like you get through Prime Video channels, where your channel is in sort of a walled garden and offered as an a la carte add-on channel within another channel ecosystem. Most popular is probably Amazon Prime Video channels. And then, of course, all the rage right now is FAST, and we've got reps from PlutoTV on this panel. And this is when this is the acronym stands for Free Ad Supported TV, and this is streamed from a platform with an integrated dynamic ad insertion technology. PlutoTV being the leader in this industry right now. And I threw social on here in quotes because this is often forgotten about, but it really is part of the whole. And this is your channel, or represented, your channel is, a smaller version of your channel through the normal platforms where video is being consumed. And it plays an important role, especially when you're trying to get your messaging and get discovered out there to consumers. So we'll talk about that a little bit. So you've got choices. Now, notice in here in the OTT section, I didn't even really include all the sub choices between all of these different sections. OTT, if you're launching an SVOD channel, just within the OTT category itself, you've got so many choices. Which devices do you roll out on? Which platforms do you roll out on? How do you differentiate between your UI in all of these different devices where you're represented? And it is a difficult decision. We're not even going to scratch the surface on it. We can go into some of that in the question and answer after this, as to whether or not you want to do like build it yourself or use a white label service. And there are several of them that are really good right now. But I'm talking just take a step back and more broadly, how do you want to go to market with your content? Because that's really what you have. You're a content provider, you've got content, and now it's your job to figure out the best way to deliver it to the people that are looking for it or would like it if they knew it existed. So you've got all these question marks with regard to how do I brand the channel across these different verticals? How much content do I include on each one of these different verticals? And what is the strategy that's behind the choices that I make in those first two rows there? So you really want to talk about weighing each opportunity separately and decide the best plan of attack. Stuff supported by your brand goals, your commercial goals, any budget constraints that you might have, or any rights restrictions that you might have with the content that you control. Maintenance, right? You don't want to leave any, you don't want to launch something and then abandon it. So what do you really have the bandwidth to maintain if you're going to launch a channel? And then what market overlap do you have between the target that you're trying to reach and the platform that you're launching on? You try to find the best, Venn diagram there so that it makes the most sense. And let's take a look at what some of these other networks have decided to do. If you just look at the choices that they've made as they start to roll out their channel across these different areas, take AMC, for instance. AMC is one of our parent networks at ShortsTV. And on linear, you have the rebrand and the AMC logo that we're all used to. And they have maintained this from their linear channel to their OTT product. But then if you go and look up AMC in a branded area like Amazon Prime channels, you're going to find this different brand, AMC Plus. And if you pull up AMC in the FAST environment, you're going to see more than one AMC represented. And you're going to see sub-brands like AMC Presents and Stories by AMC. History Channel did something similar here. You see History's got that brand that you're used to in their linear channel. And then when they rolled out on OTT, now we see History Vault, where you can subscribe for a monthly subscription price and get access to a bunch of History Channel content on demand, anytime, anywhere, and on any device. And same thing, they maintained that. They didn't change that brand up when going to a branded area. If you go to Amazon Prime channels, you're still going to find History Vault. And then you see a difference when you look up history and what they're presenting through their FAST offerings, which is you'll see Skills and Thrills, for instance, on PlutoTV, presented by History Channel. And MTV, same thing there. You see the old MTV logo. They've launched MTV Play for OTT in the branded area. And FAST Channel, you can see 3 different versions of MTV featuring different kinds of content. Spanking new, biggest pop, and Yo MTV. So you can see it gives brands a lot of latitude to play around here and to put together an offering that they think is going to be best suited for the platform that they're launching on. It requires a lot of thought and a delicate touch and a holistic strategy so that all roads lead to Rome in the end, and your brand is preserved over time. And that brand promise that you're making to consumers is met over time. So I did a little experiment here, and let's imagine that this is your channel. You've got 1,500 hours of content that you control the rights to in some way, shape, or form now. We're going to call this channel JTV, and we're going to make some choices and try to talk about why we're making the choices that we're making in these different verticals. So the first set of choices you got to make is the content volume. If you have, let's just say 1,500 hours of content, how are you going to slice and dice that and put what where? What are consumers expecting to find when they subscribe or when they watch on a certain place? For the linear feed, you're limited by sort of a calendar, right? A programming schedule, and there's only so many hours in a year, and you've got to keep it fresh. But how often do you repeat and whatnot? What can you maintain? What do you have the rights to? 800 hours per year of unique programming in any sort of a calendar year is probably a good amount to have on there. But in OTT environment, you can upload something to the CMS, and can be there forever if you've got the rights in perpetuity. So that might be the spot where you want to put everything, so that the super consumer that really loves your content, loves your brand, can pay the subscription directly to you.
Jeff, you need to wrap up. We're getting towards the end.
So anyway, I'm going to keep it short. I broke this up into some different brands here. You can see the differentiation. JTV Max, where consumers are going to get everything. JTV Plus, where you're going to have a branded area and you're going to give away a lot, but not everything. You're going to hold back strategically. And then JTV Presents is your fast option. And maybe you have a bunch of different one of these that you're going to curate these categories that pique interest, that are timely, and that push your service with branded messaging to those more permanent, like OTT environments where people are going to have anytime, anywhere VOD watch capabilities. And then the social ones also, I'll just say really quickly, I threw up here all of these fast channels, and fast offers a great opportunity for you to put together a curated, smaller segment of your brand and use it to not only generate ad revenue, but also drive traffic to your other bigger brand opportunities, like your OTT, like your premium OTT. And don't forsaken the social channels. I'll leave you with this, and we can talk about it more in the Q&A, but the brands that stand out today are the ones who commit to feeding the insatiable content craving beast that is the internet. Provide a continuous stream of brand relevant content published across all brand relevant distribution platforms, and you will build trust over time. You will help your content get in front of the right eyeballs and direct people to where they can watch you where they are, right? Meet them where they are, and don't forsake this. It's great to just slice and dice native to each one of these platforms. I included all of them because they may be relevant, they may not, but I included all these where it's really powerful marketing tool to get your brand in front of people. Sorry, run a little longer. We'll talk more. Please prepare any questions you have, and I'll answer them in the Q&A.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. So as we're running a bit late, we'll go straight. If you can fire up your camera, Ian, and give us the rundown on that shiny new stuff. Ian, your camera, please.
There we go. That's better. It's so hi, I'm Ian Nock. I'm the founder and principal consultant with Fairmile West. It's a small boutique consulting company based out of the UK. We primarily provide consulting services in the areas of product and technology strategy to basically operators, device manufacturers, and even content providers in primarily Europe, but also we go sometimes a little bit broader than that. So what I've got here in front of us now, if I just share my screen. Okay, so I'm here to talk to you about meeting that multi-platform, multi-device challenge when it comes to new services. Now, what do we mean by new services? Here, really, we're talking about anything that isn't really straightforward streaming of standard definition content, standard dynamic range content that we have out there. You'll find on many platforms in the world. This is the stuff that people like Netflix, Amazon, etc., and Disney have all been doing now for a little while. So the new has got to be taken a little bit in quotes, a little bit. But really, it's about how does anyone go out there and actually try and provide these services to that multi-platform, multi-device set of multi-devices out there, to provide those new services based on UHT technologies like high dynamic range, high frame rate, next generation audio, etc. And that's where you really got to answer the questions that you try and answer with any type of platform launch, really. And that is, I'll just go to the next slide. Before you do anything, you've got to really know who your customers are in the market you're going to address. And that's really critical because if you're going to launch some new services around UHD, HDR, for example, on a streaming basis, you've got to know your customers are going to be there to actually buy the service. they're going to be able to consume it, and all of those different characteristics that you've got to think about your customer. And that's also where you got to think about your market key characteristics. So if you're addressing a country that has those high bandwidth links needed for 4K services, then that's an important thing you want to tick off that they can do. But if it's actually a country which is at the beginning of its transition from maybe legacy broadband services to new fiber ones, that maybe you haven't quite got the right market, or you may have to actually address the sort of size of the growth you're going to do into that country with a new service based on UHD technologies. You've also got to answer what the regulatory framework is for that country. That's also important for whatever service you want to launch. But with regard to UHD HDR services, there might be a requirement to fulfill universal service for your service as licensed into a country. So you've got to really think about that. And of course, the key issue, you've got to think about the device population in the market. Not every country is identical in the world. They move at different speeds from one set of technology to another. Some countries have got a high penetration of 4K smart TVs. Some countries don't at all. Some countries have a tendency to have their televisions live for 10, 15 years. Others maybe 3 or 4 years. Each of these characteristics you really got to take into account when you're looking at a new market to deploy these sorts of services into. And also, are there a country which has a large take-up rate of OTT devices of the type that are needed by your service? A great example there is in the US market, of course, iPhones. There are plenty. It's a very popular brand. It's got a high market penetration, but in many countries in Central and Eastern Europe, iPhones have less than 3 or 4% of the total market. And if you think about that, not all iPhones or the latest, well, everything but the latest iPhones don't support the technologies required by a UHD HDR service. You really got to think about that in your analysis of when you come to launch a new service in a country. There's also the same with software versions. This is a particular issue, of course, in things like the PC and Android ecosystems, because would it surprise you that in some countries in Europe, for example, you have 5 to 10% of the mobile phone population are still running Android versions older than version 5, which would not be able to support a lot of the services you want to deploy. So you really got to quantify your addressable market for your service, and that's really what you have to do. And also, as I said, the network performance baselines for that country. So there might be a large country which is driven to deploy headline gigabit services, but if they're not able to maintain high bitrate services for a vast bulk of the population, then that's also going to be a key challenge for you deploying into that country. So you really have to ask a lot of fundamental questions about your market before deploying a new service. But what about the characteristics of the technologies themselves that I've touched on? This is where you've got to think about them being split into 4 different areas. And one is the resolution aspect. Delivering HD 4K 8K services, you really got to think about setting up your stream platform so it actually deals with the delivery of content to the display device's resolution rather than, say, the content resolution. So, and you've got to do that with using what I always loosely refer to as a content factory. In other words, a platform set up purposely to take whatever format of content in to output whatever format is required by the device that it needs to be addressed to it. And of course, the important thing here is that when delivering things like HD, 4K and 8K services, particularly 8K, that's really only barely achievable in most networks in the world today. 4K is achievable in most Western markets. Here, it's important around what codecs you're going to use. And at the moment, HEVC is a de facto codec for 4K solutions, services. Obviously, Google pushed the VP9 and AV1 to provide those sorts of services. You can use those, but they're not really widely used outside of the Google ecosystem, really. You've also got other codecs coming down the line, which I'm sure other parties will refer to, and in the Q&A we can go to in a little bit, which you'll hear about in discussion, but really these are several years from commercialization today. Then in terms of delivering services with high dynamic range, this is actually an area which is probably the biggest area, which is for improving the experience of customers. And this is where you're looking at deploying services based on high dynamic range formats. Now here you've heard about HDR10, Dolby Vision, HLG, HDR10 plus, all these formats. But the key thing to note here when it comes to television displays that you target using your content factory, you really got to think about supplying HDR10 for on-demand services, HDR10 for HDR10 is also used primarily on mobile phone devices as well, and a lot on PC devices, whereas HLG10 is very much a linear broadcast format, which is very popular more in the broadcast arena. And HDR10 Plus is another format which at the moment it's used by companies like Amazon, etc., but it's not really in the it's not more than a handful of percentage of the content out there these days. And you've got to look at the way that content is consumed by those devices. And the most important thing to realize, you do really need that content factory, because you've still got to supply SDR formats for those great many of devices that don't support HDR, particularly in the mobile phone world, where you're talking about 70 or 80% of all devices deployed don't really support high dynamic range. And also supplying to PCs as well, largely because at the end of the day, PCs don't support HDR particularly well today, and it's likely not going to be supporting it particularly well for some months, if not a year or two yet to come. Other services you want to pull out there is, I've labeled it as higher frame rates rather than high frame rate. And this is because at the moment, the big step for many streaming companies is to move from the sort of 25 frame per second standard they largely do today through to 50 and 60 frame per second content, which is really a high point to do, primarily for movie content, primarily for sports content, not movie content, television content and sports content. And true HFR, well, we won't really talk too much about that at the moment. It's very much stored by complete lack of any content. So you probably not find any content to launch on such a service. And looking at next generation audio, and this is a key area which actually has really hit the headlines today. This is where you're moving from surround sound audio through to object-based audio, which gives an even bigger 360-degree surround sound possibility. And here the leader in the market at the moment is Dolby Atmos. And the reason why I mention the news today, of course, is today Apple themselves have announced the launch of a HD audio service, music service, to be deployed for free on top of what they already provide as part of Apple Music, but they're using that based on Dolby Atmos technology. So that's a huge push there for next generation audio capabilities. But certainly you get this on a lot of content today, the high-end premium content. But the thing to note there, again, it's all about device support and what you do about those devices that don't support the format. That's really what I wanted to do in terms of the new services. I think we'll save any questions to the end there, and we can move on to the next presentation.
And then we'll go straight over to Remi, if you're ready, Remi, to give us the drop down on sustainability. And don't use any energy in this talk.
I promise. So I hope that we will have Ian back with us soon. Hello, everyone. My name is Remi. I'm running strategy and marketing in ATEME. Just a quick words about ATEME. So ATEME, we help content providers, service providers, and streaming platforms. So I guess like most of you, to reach billions of viewers on any screen at any time. So we are really at the heart of what we are discussing today. To do so, we focus on making sure that you can provide an high quality of experience, but without compromising on the cost. So we are making sure that our solutions are efficient and green, because I know that, and we are all have a global concern about global warming. So we make sure that we are performant so that we can reach as many viewers as possible while keeping the watt per pixel as low as possible. But we are also helping our customers differentiating themselves by generating new revenue streams, personalized television, cloud DVR, dynamic ad insertion, as well as leveraging new reinvent content distribution with 5G or analytics. To do all of that, what we do provide actually are video compression and video streaming solutions. We are really everywhere at the data plane. not glass to glass, because we don't have camera, we don't have players, but we have everything in between: encoders, transcoders, packager, origin server, and CDN. ATEME, video compression, streaming, CDM, end-to-end. The slide I will be presented to you in less than 5 minutes, I commit to that, Benjamin, are just discussion points for our talking point a bit later. So we all obviously know the strategy around multi-screen, but what are the challenges? So on this first slide, we address, based on the survey within our customers, first, the type of devices and also the technical challenges. So I don't need to spend too much time on it because it's obvious: tablet and smartphones and DRM. We could expect that encoding could be an issue, but multi-DRM is an issue. How do we protect the content? And I know that Jeff and Ian have some talk about it. The second point is about the customization. Indeed, when we look today at the multi-screen, one of the obvious challenge is the fragmentation. The content is fragmented, the offer is fragmented. Today or yesterday, there was an announcement that AT&T and Discovery will merge their assets. So something that sometimes you may find on one portal, the day after you might find on another portal. If you move from one country to another country, you change. At some point, we, the people, we are lost with all this fragmentation. One way to keep engaging with the end user is actually to offer a customized content. Everybody is talking about a personalized television, a personalized channel, or personalized lineup. Who is offering that today? Almost nobody. And I'm sure that Pluto will also have a talk about that, because Pluto is one of the front runners of that application and one of the few already offering that. The issue with television, or the challenge with television also, is that this is a passive experience. We all understand the virtue of gaming. Gaming, we are active, no brainer. But television, eventually, this is an activity where we want to enjoy an entertainment. So we, on some point, we want some customization, true. But on the other point, we want that customization to reach us quite easily. We don't want to choose and spend our time scrolling down thumbnails. So we need to do a better job in proposing an enhancement in terms of content so that we can enjoy the content that we want on any screen. A point now about data collection. It's a difficult playground, because we all understand that we need to customize the content. We are all willing to receive a customized content, but also we are a bit more restrictive nowadays with the data. We don't want to share all data at the same time. And streaming platforms, TV providers are also a bit sensitive on how they collect data. So how do we manage the two? How do we manage the customization on one side and the personalization and the data collection on the other side? So these are all the data points that we can discuss after that during the Q&A session. The last point I would like to discuss is actually the green aspect. Because one thing which is clear is that the demand for content is getting bigger every day. There are more and more platforms. There are challenges associated to that, no brainer. But it means also that there is an impact on the carbon footprint. And we all have a kind of personal mandate at some point to reduce our carbon footprint. Because the goal is not to go back to the ancient world. There is streaming. Streaming is good. There is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is good. So now, how can we make that happen? How can we embrace personalization and content on any screen while lowering the streaming and the carbon footprint? How can we make sure that at every piece of the puzzle, every piece of the processing chain, we can lower the carbon footprint so that the pixel per watt or the OC2 gram is lower. And that was my last slide. The goal is not to make it happen or to make it green. The goal is to make it happen and green. Thank you, Ben. And
wow. You know how long that was? That was 5 minutes and 1 second.
Good.
I timed you. Excellent. So thank you very much. My camera is on. And before we go into an open discussion, I'd like to have a brief one-to-one discussion start with, and I have now lost my notes and slide deck with all of that, with Tom. Tom, could you fire up your camera? And so Tom, as you may have forgotten, it was a long time ago when we introduced everybody, Director of Engineering from Pluto. In all these 3 subjects, we've heard about new technologies, we've heard about all the issues of addressing this. We've heard about the issue of privacy and stuff, but all that's about collecting data. And so perhaps you could tell us, you know, we've been hearing about analytics over the last 10 years more and more. Now it's really happening. And could you tell us the analytics story and how it relates to the multi-screen challenge, how analytics helps us in this challenge of getting the same content and the same services on multiple screens?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Yeah, hi again, Tom Schultz, Director of Native Apps at PlutoTV. So I cover platform-wise all the Apple stack, iOS, macOS, tvOS, Android TV, Android mobile, as well as Fire TV and Roku as well. Prior to Pluto, I worked for Fox, where I led up the player experience for all the Fox brands, Fox Sports, Fox Now, Fox Nation, etc. But along the way, quantitative analytics is obviously very, very important, especially here at Pluto. We only make data-driven decisions. So from a quantitative perspective, and being a quote fast service, as Jeff alluded to, we really pride ourselves on protecting viewer privacy. And like anyone, we have a finite set of budget per platform. Thus, you know, our platform decision making is extremely quantitative. So really, as an existing service based on trial and error, we really suggest that as you get up and going, you know, you take the typical generic dimensions that you'd expect that were kind of touched on earlier by Ian, device manufacturer, generation, model, GeoIP, your any genre for your content, ad pod fill rate, completion rates, and then increasingly so, localized language and culture for the actual content played back. That will really give you an idea of your audience. And also help your curation as well. So for example, based on a lot of these this data, we recently launched a lot of Espanol content in LATAM markets, and we're very active currently with content in celebration of the Asian American Heritage Month. And then of course we have expanded our markets into the EU, Spain, France, and some other countries. So what you may find over the past year is that, you know, especially from the pandemic, is that your usage profiles from a year ago may have dramatically changed. And for us, it's, and other providers, you know, you see a real shift from mobile to connected devices. So from Pluto's standpoint, who would have thought a year ago that binging on MacGyver episodes for like 36 hours would be a thing? I'd say our Roku platform, but those are things that happen. So for some streaming platforms, this may have caused like a serious disruption and like a hard architectural pivot in terms of both programming and rights. And if you started with just say the you know, sexy important platforms in the US domestically, as I mentioned earlier, what could typically be the Apple platforms, and then also Google Android as your primary playback platforms, then you might have to make a hard pivot to support, you know, Roku as it comes along, Fire TV, and the like. So now as COVID restrictions are easing in different ways and in different markets, they most likely will change and again. So it's really important to monitor these trends and analytics closely. So, again, here at Pluto, we strive for feature parity across all platforms, and there's still a finite budget for each platform. And we're deployed on every native app platform you can think of, every smart TV platform, every gaming platform, and other platforms, consumer devices that are coming out. So when we commit to a feature, whether it's a new electronic programming guide, tuning up our ad pods, introducing ferreting, or are you still watching, bringing on partner upsells like Paramount Plus, implementing DRM across all of those platforms, it's truly an ambitious and also costly endeavor. And we're always, as a FAST service, looking at how does it impact our revenue? Because again, we are a pure AVOD service. And after that, then we are literally aligning our entire product and engineering trains around a full quarter commitment, and our teams go into execution mode. So we're seeking for that full feature parity, but we're at the same time, we have to pay attention along the way, because 90 days in the streaming ecosystem is a very, very long time. So if you miss on a feature or misunderstand your analytics, we could either end up behind or could miss out on a real partnering opportunity or app feature. So to address this and to keep innovating, increasingly, we are really leveraging our experimentation platform to aid in making these decisions, especially as it relates to markets across the globe with varying degrees of privacy and COVID restrictions and viewing habits. So whether that's in Europe or LATAM or domestically here in the United States, we really strive to try things out first with some sample audiences, collect our KPIs to determine in our acceptance criteria to determine if this is truly a great feature that we want to roll out across the entire enterprise. So that's just kind of mainly on the quantitative left brain side of things. There's also the qualitative side of things. So that's great if we get all this information about how our platform performs and we pivot some of our features. But at the same time, there's a qualitative nature. If people don't enjoy the playback experience, they're not going to come back. So what I mean by that is our slogan at Pluto is drop in and watch for free. So we really aim for a frictionless viewer experience in comparison to, say, a pay TV model where you need to sign in with your MVPD and pass all the entitlement checks. We want to get you right into free content immediately. So if you buy a smart TV, you get in our stream quickly and you can enjoy. Linear channels switching, so channel 5 to channel 6, we want that to be as faster than you would find on a set-top box. We also want the same for VOD experience, where we don't want like a very friction-filled sign-up or activation experience. So there are great analytics vendors out there, Conviva, Mux, nice people at work, as well as rolling your owns. They provide great dashboards for these things. On the surface, it may sound like, okay, I just need to simply pick a player and run with it, sign up for Conviva and Mux, and sure there's, or someone else, sure that's part of it. But really having end-to-end playback traceability with the player itself, and what we like to call nerd mode, which gives us insights into reproing issues, codec failures, closed caption rendering, any of those things. It's really, really super important. So I cannot stress enough to your service to build, if you're looking to scale out to multiple cultures, multiple languages across the globe, as well as possibly multiple brands, as Jeff talked about at the open of our session, really build out a foundational reusable playback SDK architecture with dedicated resources. You can allow those people to really focus on supporting short-term needs and long-term needs around EPG, CMS APIs, profiles, beaconing, you name it. And that's really what's going to allow you to adapt very quickly based on those quantitative figures and really adapt your playback scenario. Again, it needs to be an expert team of subject matter experts focused around those native core player SDKs. It is a long-term investment, but other than the streams themselves, the most important foundational aspect of a streaming app is the actual playback. Let's face it. So this really allows you to economically free up your app engineering teams to focus on things like UX branding, localization, usability, that sort of thing. And again, there's many third-party players that you can leverage, as well as open source projects, partners, I'm sure, that sponsor this conference, like others like Bitmovin, Theo Player, JW Player, etc. Or you can roll your own. So at Pluto, we actually roll our own, but we build on top of the open source SDKs. So AV Foundation on the Apple stack, Google/Amazon XO Player on Android and Fire TV. And then we actually use a mix of open source JS players for our web, smart TV, and Chromecast platforms. And then Roku obviously having its own playback platform built in. So really consistent playback experience is qualitative to us. It allows for specific features to be built out in those economies. So things that we can quickly roll out across platforms are things like eventually ad skipping, picture-in-picture, floating players, customized caption experience, especially for the multilingual needs, VOD thumbnails, and then specific controls for VOD or live playbacks experiences.
Thanks, Tom.
So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was fascinating because you were going to tell us about analytics, and you did. And I was expecting to be, oh no, not hear all about numbers, and you actually made it all about features and how using. I thought that was really cool. Thanks a lot. We're going to have to go into the panel session Q&A and thing. And dear audience, I'm talking to you, looking at the right camera. I've prepared some questions. They're really boring. You don't want to hear them. So quickly put some questions in there, because Eric's done a great job. He's already answered all the questions that were put in there. So we need some more questions to keep this ball rolling. So I'd like to throw out to all my panelists the questions that we haven't really addressed head on in the area of multi is DRM and content protection. Often one's thought of that as something that holds you back, and it's but in the olden days when we started sort of digital content, DRM was digital rights management, was also about pushing things. And when you have a small device and you have things, why not sort of send a tweet to somebody, say, hey, take this content and stuff like that, and DRM could actually help. In this multi-device world, the question, open question, raise your hand, whoever wants to address it. Is it more of a hindrance still, like it was when we started developing, or is it becoming an opportunity to help distribute and disseminate content? Don't all answer at once.
I don't mind taking that one. So DRM, I think it's neither hindering nor helping. I think it's become something that just works under the hood, especially now that we're in a world where multi-DRM is very, very stable on effectively platforms. In other words, we know that Google is Widevine, we know that Apple is Fairplay, and we know that Microsoft uses PlayReady, and a few other people use various combinations of those. And at the end of the day, as long as you've got those three in concrete and available, it generally works. I don't, in all the recent deployments, we've not really had issues with that. It's almost being and also around it's not the issue that gets in the way. That's my experience.
I think sorry. I was gonna play a little bit of devil's advocate here, be a bit of a dissenter. DRM, like, biggest waste of time ever. I'll give you an example. Disney comes out with its huge movie, right? His last animated movie, Raya. I've got 2 young kids, third one on the way. And they were all about, Daddy, we got to see Daddy, we got to see Raya, we got to see Raya. So I totally did it. And the day that Disney launched it, I forked over, I don't know how much it was, like almost $30 or something. And I, bought it. Of course I did. And I'm sure that Disney spends tons of money on DRM and does everything that they can possibly do to protect their catalog of content. The same day, my friend, I'm not going to mention his name, called me up on the phone and said, hey, Jeff, I know you got kids. I just downloaded Raya, put it on my Plex. You can watch it. What are we doing? Like anybody can steal anything. If you put a camera on the screen, the video cameras are so great. As long as you don't have an earthquake during it, like it's going to be on the internet the next day. Look, I love it. I can understand why we're doing it, and I'm all for managing rights. But come on, if it can be stolen, it can all be stolen. And we all spend a lot of time and money trying to figure out the DRM solution. But argue with me, please.
Remi was nodding his head. I don't know if it was an agreement or disagreement, Remi.
You're on mute. Remi's on mute.
Remi, you're on mute.
There you
Sorry,
go.
on mute.
Yep.
Yeah, everything can be stolen, true. But if you have a compelling DRM system on any platform, and if you can match both your interest in reaching any platform and you have a content protection, at least the risk is not zero, meaning your level of security might be 1, 2, 5, 10, and it's always better than 0. Because if you don't do anything, then it's the jungle. At least when you have some DRM, but also watermarking and all of the steps that you can use all along the processing chain, then you make sure that at some point it will become harder and harder for the pirate to hijack the content.
Sure, it would be harder and harder for the pirate, but as far as the content provider goes, it can be a huge barrier to entry in terms of cost, right? DRM, it can be that limiting factor that prevents you from getting into the game at all. And yeah, it may be a hindrance for the pirate, but I think it's cheaper to get around for the pirate than it is perhaps for the content provider.
Are you sure? What is the most expensive asset? Is it the content itself or the DRM? I mean, to be honest, the workflow is cheap compared to the cost that you need for producing.
Yeah, but so what? I mean, when you buy a really expensive bottle of perfume, it costs the perfume company a couple of dollars to make the perfume and $20, $30 to make the bottle. And you're buying the whole thing for $100. So
I would say as a platform that has to respect our rights very carefully, more and more studios are demanding or requiring DRM. So it's definitely something that's pervasive. I would say on the technical standpoint, things that people might overlook for planning, if you're just been doing HLS for like the last 5 to 6 years, and all of a sudden you're going to now support another packaging format. We have our own transcoding service and packaging. That's something that we have to account for. And I would say,
Tom, can I just interrupt you there and call you out on something there? I'm lucky. I'm not affiliated to anybody at the moment, so I can call people out because I don't work for any. I'm an independent consultant, and I've seen so much bullshit. Sorry for the expression. Where content owner says, you've got to do this, you've got to do this, and I won't give you any content unless you do that. And it's a power struggle. And then if the distributor is a small distributor, they say, okay, yes, sir, here you are. And they spend millions on there. And if the distributor is some big company that has millions of subscribers and say, give me your content the way I want it. I saw that with the beginning of UHD content. 10 years ago, they said, well, only ever do it if you do watermarking, and watermarking is coming now, 10 years after it was supposed to come.
I think obviously it comes down to relationships, not only with Google and Apple, as well as Microsoft for PlayReady. It comes down to relationships there on that end, and then also content distribution. We would never turn around and commit and say we're going to just turn a switch and it's going to be done. It's something that even for a large provider like us, we have to roll out in stages over a very long period of time. So totally respect where your position there for smaller services, which we were not that long ago.
Good for you. We're getting towards the end, so if anybody has any concluding, after having listened to all the other panelists, any concluding remarks, I think we have something like 2 minutes left before we get up to the hour. Then to wrap up on the DRM subject.
I would like to just go back to what I said. Actually, I think it's right. Yes, anyone can. I think there are pirates who can steal pretty much anything, especially with the camera. But at the end of the day, the whole thing about DRM and like any security solution, it's actually never going to be concrete to actually completely stop something. But it makes it harder. It doesn't stop some people being able to really get out quickly with the content, but it does actually ensure that the majority of customers pay, the vast majority. And I think the point I made there about the fact that DRM is not something that gets in the way is the most important point for the average consumer. The average consumer doesn't realize that every single bit of their content they watch on Netflix and on Amazon is protected. They don't notice it. The problems that people saw around audio content many years back, which caused people to reject DRM formats and go for a clear MP3, those issues have not been there with video now. We don't have those DRM issues. And that's the best thing for most customers.
So Eric, are you on the line? My understanding is that we should be wrapping up now. I have plenty more questions loaded, but am I right?
I'm sure you do, and I wish we had more time. But that was a terrific mix of perspectives on the multi-platform, multi-device challenge, as we called the panel. Thank you so much for sharing those perspectives, and I think everyone will walk away with a much broader and deeper sense of what the challenges and opportunities are. So thank you so much, everyone, for speaking. Thanks to all our attendees. This will be on the Streaming Media YouTube channel within a couple of days. And unfortunately, we do have to sign off. We've got another session coming up in 30 minutes on WebRTC and building interactive live sports experiences. So with that, we'll sign off with another message from our Diamond sponsor, Signian. Thank you so much.
When the director calls action.
And action.
When the game is on.
Pick it up. It's good.
Or it's time to save the universe again. Media Shuttle is there. Trusted by more than 25,000 media companies, Media Shuttle delivers, making it easy and secure to send any size file anywhere fast. The journey begins with Media Shuttle portals, customized and branded for any project and designed to be so easy, your end users will love it. All while giving operations teams complete control through a simple yet powerful admin interface. Add users, set permissions, customize file delivery specs, and report on all activity. Blast off with proprietary acceleration technology. Media Shuttle moves your content anywhere in the internet-connected world at hyper speeds. Along the way, your files are protected. Our commitment to enterprise-grade security has made Media Shuttle a preferred tool with Hollywood studios, major sports leagues, broadcasters, and more. With Media Shuttle, your files are never handed over to Signiant. File movement is orchestrated between the end user's workstation and your storage, whether on-prem or in the cloud. Your IT team simply provisions your storage, connecting it to the Media Shuttle cloud service, and Signiant handles the rest. Get started on your Media Shuttle journey today, a journey without limits.